Ever caught yourself falling for somebody's potential, not who they actually are? Well, joining us today is relationship coach John Dabach to unpack why so many singles get emotionally attached to people who aren't really showing up. We're talking emotional unavailability, fantasy versus reality, and how to finally start choosing partners who are consistent and not just promising. Well, let's get into it.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to 52, the podcast where we give you the tips, tools, and mindset to help you date with intention and build a relationship that lasts. I'm Kelly, a former tech attorney here in New York, now on a mission to help singles become the best and truest version of themselves.
I'm Rodney Rabani, a marriage and family therapist here in Beverly Hills, also a dating and relationship coach.
And today's episode is a good one. If you've ever struggled with emotional connection, toxic patterns, or felt confused between green flags and red flags, this one's for you. And to help us unpack this, we're joined by John Dabach, a couples coach and communication expert who's helped over 1,300 couples find clarity, resolve conflict, and deepen their connection. John's known for his real talk, practical tools, and no fluff approach to healthy relationships, and is the author of Your Communication Sucks and the ebook, The 6-Week Communication Fix. His own marriage was actually once at risk as well, and he realized it wasn't therapy, gifts, or traveling that saved it. It was learning and implementing proper communication. In today's world where ghosting runs rampant and AI is starting to take over dating apps, John's message about honest, vulnerable communication is more vital now than ever. John, we are so excited to have you here. Welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm great. I'm honored to be here. Thanks for having me.
And where are you joining us from?
I'm in Calabasas. I always joke it's the land of the Kardashians.
Amazing. Right by Rodney. So we got both coasts. To our listeners, whether you're single or in a relationship, grab your coffee or your tea and settle in because we are diving into the real stuff today. John and Rodney, are you guys ready to get started?
Yep.
All right, here we go. So, a 27-year-old woman from Chicago says she keeps falling for emotionally unavailable men, especially the mysterious, brooding types. She knows they aren't good for her, but she convinces herself they just need the right person to open up to. Recently, she caught herself romanticizing a guy she's been dating who barely texts her back, imagining who he could become instead of who he actually is. She said it feels like she's dating someone's potential more than their reality. So, our first question on this is what is the difference between seeing someone's potential and reality? And why are so many people, especially women, drawn to someone's potential instead of their present reality?
So both men and women actually I've seen be a victim or guilty of this. That they'll chase potential. You mentioned that she chases emotional unavailability or someone that's not really good to her. And that could come off as mysterious. And deep down, it's so subconscious. A lot of people chase someone who's not good for them because they have a deep fear of intimacy. And they'll look for someone that's not good because deep down, they don't think they deserve real love or intimacy. Or it's all the way back in their mind that it will be a way for them to never get completely close to that person that's mysterious or emotionally unavailable. So in fact, in some ways they're also emotionally unavailable. Now, not everyone is like this, but like you mentioned, there's many men and women who chase that type of partner.
I think the potential question is a really good question. First of all, it's fun. I think that's why a lot of people do it. It's more fun to date the billionaire than the guy, who's making 40, 50, 60, whatever thousand, a year sitting across from you at a diner table. If you're in New York, 150, whatever, it depends on where you're listening to this. So it's fun and it's a fantasy. That where it becomes a problem is when it spirals out of control. And so you aren't interested in the person in front of you. Listen, when my wife and I got married, neither of us had a real solid career to speak of, and our potential was limitless because we got married pretty young, but we were still in love with the person in front of us. And so we were able to grow together. So you have to ask yourself, are you in love with the person in front of you? If you are, great. Then the potential is not a problem. That's actually something to look forward to and grow into. But if you don't like the person in front of you, you're in trouble, right? Because then you're dating someone else. And so it's okay to like, I would say, you're in the tech world. What is it like version 1.0 or like the MVP version
V1.
of your husband, like that you're trying to like eventually get with. But you have to like that base version as a potential final version because they might not evolve. And I would like to echo what Rodney said. There is an emotional unavailability when people are dating, when they're attracted to mysterious men. That is usually a sign that there's a lack of awareness of what's wrong in their own life. So when someone is hard to get, not playing hard to get, but is actually hard to get, it's because they have a lot going on and they have a happy life. And so they don't need you. And so they're hard to get because they're actually hard to get. Like, look at me, I'm impossible to get, right? Like I'm married with 4 kids. Nobody stands a chance, right? So it's like my wife's beautiful. Like I'm very, very hard to get. When you're hard to get, there's something attractive about it because it's like, oh, you have something interesting going on in your life. The problem is if you're looking at that as something exciting and it's synthetic, so the person is mysterious just to put on a show in order to attract, because all that nonsense books of like, being an alpha male and negging on girls and kind of creating this synthetic version of someone who's interesting has kind of leached on into the male psyche because men are being rejected more now than ever because of the apps. And so they've kind of had to learn to peacock and do these weird, horrible, manipulative tactics. And women are supposed to be into a guy who has a full life. The problem happens when he doesn't actually have a full life. He's just pretending. And so mysterious is, you have to ask, what kind of mysterious is it? Is he like the manager of a hedge fund that flies all over the world and literally doesn't have time? That's interesting. Is it that he's sitting alone in his apartment and waiting 3 days to make you think that he's busy? That's a problem.
That's a really good point that you brought up. Just one of the things that just came to mind is I was talking with someone last week, and I know our listener's a girl here, but he's a guy. And he was saying, you brought up dating apps. He was saying how he matches with girls on dating apps, but they never start conversations, or if he starts a conversation, they never follow up and follow through. He's having a really hard time figuring out if someone is emotionally available or just chasing validation or attention. So what are some signs that someone is emotionally available versus just chasing validation or attention?
The best and most clear sign is if someone's word is aligned with their action. So if they say they could promise you X, Y, and Z, but if they're not backing that up with action, then to me that's fake. It's pseudo, right? If there's backing, then they're being real, transparent, and honest with how they feel and showing you what you need.
You had a couple questions there. In terms of emotional availability, how do you check if someone has it? Naturally, it'll happen over a few dates. I always tell women, especially, you should give it at least 2 dates, sometimes 3. Not, if a first date is bad, make the second date the first date. That should be your new gold standard. But if you date someone for long enough, again, 2, 3 dates is usually enough, you're going to have a little hiccup somewhere in your life that you're going to complain about. Check if the person you're going on a date with leans in and asks questions and is genuinely expressing empathy. If they are, that's a good sign that they're emotionally available. If they turn the subject back around to them or they shut down, that's a bad sign. And so if you say like, man, I had a bad day at work, it might sound innocuous for someone to say, oh, tell me about it, me too. But that's actually a sign that they're not able to hold the space for you, which is what emotional availability is. So if you say you had a bad day at work and the person says, oh my gosh, what happened? Chances are you have someone who has a little bit of presence.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't know if you guys saw the show You on Netflix, and it's all everyone's been talking about. So let's talk a little bit about the Joe Goldberg effect on girls. We have this character. He's dark. He's mysterious. He is the stereotypical narcissist. And at every single girl okay, spoiler alert, the last season is the first time that a girl actually doesn't fall for the trap and they see the red flag. So Can you explain or list out some of the signs that will enable someone to spot out a narcissist in the early days of dating?
One sign that I'm seeing a lot of, and it's one of those social media buzzwords now, it's love bombing. So if a guy is like really drowning you with affection, it's really a way of them controlling the pace of the relationship. And that's a sign of a man or woman that could be narcissistic, or if you want to go one step deeper, have some level of personality disorder, which could be dangerous or tough or unhealthy. But also, if someone is really revolving every decision or most decisions, most topics, most things that are happening in your interactions, it's revolved around them, what they like, talking about themselves. It's very self-centered view. So that's probably the biggest sign.
I actually think it's very difficult to spot it early.
Yeah.
Um, I have a hard time even in session spotting a narcissist because and a lot of therapists do from what I've heard, because they mask well. That's part of the manipulation. Also, I'm going to be irresponsible if I don't bring this up. There's a tendency to label everybody as a narcissist. And as much as I love Dr. Romani, she's brilliant. I don't know if I'd buy into this kind of theory she has that 1 in 6 people are narcissists. It's like, okay, if that's the case, then 1 out of every 3 couples I see is doomed, because her attitude is like, there's no fixing a narcissist, get out while you can, like zero forgiveness. And it's like, okay, I agree with you if it's true narcissistic personality disorder, but many people have narcissistic traits without having the disorder. And
Correct.
I didn't get into this profession to save marriages only to have 1 in every 3 go, sorry, and like the truth is, if you're having problems, you're more likely to come into session. So it would probably be about 50% of my clients, and my success rate's much higher than that. And so I don't know if I completely agree. I think it's a little bit dangerous to label everybody as a narcissist. I mean,
So true.
we get into these habits where it's like in the 80s it was all about depression, and now it's anxiety, and now it's narcissism. Borderline personality disorder, which is more prevalent in women than narcissism, never gets talked about, and I see it all the time.
Yeah.
Or at least portions of it, and it gets mislabeled as narcissism.
Correct.
I do. So you have to be a little careful.
You brought up such a good point. And social media has made it even more like people run wild with these terms. They'll just pick up on some psych terms and people will just push it hard. Like narcissism is one of those things. And I didn't know that was a statistics that 1 out of 6 people are narcissists. I don't think that's accurate at all. I do think that we all have some traits of narcissism and it comes out one way or another, but diagnosing is you're already labeling the relationship, and that can't be healthy or helpful.
So you're both saying that narcissists can change then, right? Or is it a lost cause?
That doesn't mean there's no hope, but it's very difficult to cure it. You can't cure it, but you can help someone manage how they go about certain things, but you can't cure it.
I think if you're dating and if you're married or if you're in a relationship, 2 different situations. And even further, if you have children, it's a third different, situation, because I kind of look at marriages without children as the repercussions, unless you have a lot of business entanglement, separating is much easier. It's really just about you. As soon as there are children involved, it becomes much more complicated, and you're going to be joined at the hip forever anyway, because your kids, hopefully, God willing, will outlive both of you. And so if you're dating, the number one trait you should look for to avoid narcissism is generosity,
Oh, I
empathy.
love that.
The best and healthiest way to think about falling in love isn't, oh my God, I love this person. It's, oh my God, here's someone worthy of loving.
Hmm.
There's a difference there, because the more you give into a relationship, the more invested you're going to become. So you better have someone worthy of investing all that time, because that's what it is. It's not, oh my God, look at this person does for me and look at how great they make me feel. That's nonsense. You should be able to feel great on your own. But this person receives well, and I like giving. And by the way, it's going to get reciprocated. The one thing I will say in terms of signs that I've seen time and time again, for narcissism or narcissistic qualities, even if you're dating, is if there's a problem in the relationship, and it could be on a first date and you ordered something and they don't like what you ordered. I mean, it could be that minimal, right? But it could be more extreme, right? And you're dating for a month or two and you start seeing that you're getting into arguments. Ask yourself, is my reaction to their actions what they're saying the problem is, right? Are they saying you're too sensitive or you're too this or you're too that when it's explaining their behavior? That is a classic sign of a narcissistic trait. Again, doesn't diagnose the person as having NPD, but that's something to be aware of, because if your reaction is going to be called into question anytime they make a mistake, essentially a losing game. You'll just never win.
Mhm.
Right. Thank you both. And for our listener here, for example, it seems like she's not just attracted to people's potential, but she's also attracted to emotionally unavailable men. She's saying now that the guys she's dating right now won't text her back, whatever it may be. What are some actionable tips you have for singles to stop being attracted to emotionally unavailable people, especially when it feels exciting or addicting?
I have a very specific piece of advice. So you're going to be attracted to who you're attracted to. So there's no helping that. I mean, that's a physical thing. It might be an emotional thing. I think it comes back to putting it on the table. Can I tell you a quick story about my wife and I? Like, I'll give you an
Please.
example. So 2 dates in, at the time we were both very religious. I was a rabbi, so it was a whole different,
Wait,
like,
really?
yeah, it was a whole
Oh,
different
that's so
background.
cool. Okay.
And so we met at like a Jewish event, and I didn't realize how religious she was. Neither of us were born super religious, and so she was what they call shomer negia a little
Hmm.
bit, but she was flirting with it, which means that she doesn't really touch men, but she did. But it's like, how
Yeah,
far was
all
the
hands
question?
off. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so I wasn't, at the time. And I remember trying to go in on our second date just for a kiss. And she kind of gave me the cheek, and I viewed it as rejection. And I was like, oh no, I thought this woman was crazy about me. And I was like, and I wrestled with it that whole night, and I knew I was going to see her the next day. And when I saw her, I was confused because she was excited to see me. And I was like, well, I don't understand. And I said, you know what? I'm done playing games. I'm just going to say what's on my mind and what's in my heart and just confront her on it. So I said, can I talk to you for a second? And she said, yeah. And I said, listen, I went in to kiss you last night and you turned your head and you gave me the cheek. And to me, I read that as rejection. So I'm a little confused because you seem excited. Now, if there's something else going on and I'm misreading it, let me know. But if you're not interested in me, that's okay. It's early. I'll let you go. And I don't want to like hold you up. And she said, no, 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 no. Like, no, no, I'm so interested, but like, I don't know where I am with Shomer Nagia and like all this touching. And I said, that's all I needed to hear. No problem. I can respect that distance and space. But me 5 years prior would have said, screw her. I don't know. So, like, and like, I'm rejected. She doesn't like me. And so how does this translate to singles today? So if you feel like someone's emotionally unavailable and they're not responding to your texts, it's much healthier to text the person and say, hey, I've texted you 3 times or twice and you aren't responding. If you're not interested, no problem. But if you are, this isn't the kind of communication cadence that I was expecting to have out of somebody I can date. And the way they respond, are they going to shut down or are they going to lean in and say, no, 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 no? Like, absolutely, I understand. That's going to be your biggest tell. I mean, the funny thing with narcissism and emotional unavailability and any other kind of personality defect that you can really name is that if you have the courage to call it out and say what you want, it usually disintegrates instantly. So if you have the resilience to say, this is what I want, and I'm vulnerable in saying it because there's a real chance of rejection, but if I can build that thick skin, you're kind of invincible because you call it out right away.
Mhm.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I like that. And if they respond poorly, that's not your person.
That's right.
Absolutely. I love that, you brought up communication right now. Can you tell through communication styles if someone's emotionally unavailable or emotionally available?
No, because there are people who are naturally passive and there are people who are naturally aggressive. It doesn't connect to emotional availability. I mean, there are 4 main communication styles. There's passive aggressive assertive, which I call the gold standard, and then the ugly cousin of assertive, which is passive aggressive, which does nobody any good. But no, you're gonna get people who are emotionally available across the whole spectrum.
That's so interesting to hear because what happens a lot is you'll text someone and then They may not answer for a few hours, and immediately a single will think, okay, not really emotionally available. I'm not talking about like waiting like a few hours, like I'm talking about like over 12 hours
Yeah.
or whatnot, like singles in general. That's been a huge topic. Like, how long is it okay to wait? Like, does it show if they're emotionally available or not?
Well, some of it is, I mean, I don't know how you feel about this, Rodney, but some of it is the nonsense of the dating culture where we feel like if I text back too soon, that makes me look needy. You mentioned like girls aren't starting the conversations on apps. Like if that
Yeah.
was my client, if that was someone saying I'm having a hard time, I'd say like, you're dreaming if you think the women are going to start the conversation. You know, men need to swipe 200 times for a match. Women need to swipe 3 times. Like they're just
Literally.
bombarded. So get used to initiating. That's your job as a man.
The issue that the guy was saying last week was that the girls don't, like the majority of the girls
Yeah.
don't respond even.
Well, hold on. Just not to throw guys under the bus. It, there's miscommunication here because girls' complaints are also, I did communicate back, but he's not asking me out. So at some point, I'm
Yep.
going to just drop off. So yeah, if a guy turns a match into being pen pals, at some point the girl needs to say, okay, this is not going anywhere. I better put my energy somewhere else.
Yeah. It's like you match on the dating apps, then start the convo, then planning the date or not even planning the date. Then it goes from the convo to following each other on Instagram, sending each other DMs. Like from the point of swiping to the point of an actual date, if that even happens, 20 years ago, that time period, someone would be dating that person, married, and probably have a kid already or a kid on the way. I'm not even kidding.
She's right. And the biggest thing I tell guys is you match with a girl, call her right then and there, ask her out on a date. You don't need to chit chat for a week to figure out if you like her or what. Go on the date right then and there. It's just really, oh man.
So, to wrap up this topic, our listener who submitted this question, for her to move forward, what are some actionable tips you guys have for her to shift her mindset and also be able to see green flags in a guy she's dating or about to date?
Well, I mean, the first actionable step is stop dating the emotionally unavailable guy that you are dating. You know, the second tip I would have is my guess is you are confusing drama with excitement. Love and falling in love should not be that difficult. It should be somewhat boring and predictable. I mean, I've worked with I don't know how many thousands of couples over the last decade. The origin story of couples I stopped asking after a while because they were so boring and predictable. We met, we dated, we fell in love. Once in a while, you'd get like an interesting outlier, but generally, it's like we liked each other and we never stopped liking each other, and then we ended up getting married. That's kind of how it normally goes. If there's drama, and you're attracted to that drama, then chances are you have an insecure attachment style that you're confusing for love. And so whether you're anxious or avoidant, you have to do some work on your own to kind of look around the corner there.
That's the key. You got to do work on your own. And I would recommend that for anyone and everyone who sees similar patterns coming up in their dating. For this girl, her pattern is dating the emotionally unavailable guy. It's because internally something needs to be processed or worked through. It could be attachment style, or it could be some level of trauma. It could be a wall that she's put up. It could be an intimacy thing. It's hard to really say, but if you're seeing an unhealthy pattern show up, you got to do some digging and some internal work.
Very helpful. Thanks, guys. John, thank you for being so real, insightful, and grounded. I know our listeners are going to replay this one again and again. Thank you also, Rodney, for bringing your expertise and heart to today's conversation. John, where can people find you and work with you?
I mean, the easiest way is to go to Instagram or TikTok or Facebook, and there's usually a link in terms of working with me if you want to do some sessions. The socials are the easiest, and the handle is Communication John on all the platforms.
Awesome. And everyone listening, if you've ever felt stuck, uncertain, or confused in love, know that there is a way forward. The right tools, guidance, and mindset can make all the difference. So whether you're just starting to date or working to heal, we hope today gave you the spark you needed. Thanks again for tuning in to 52. We'll see you next time. And until then, happy dating. The content in this podcast is for entertainment and is not mental health, medical, or personal relationship counseling. It is not a substitute for professional expertise and judgment from a licensed healthcare or mental health professional. You should seek the advice of a qualified professional when seeking mental health or medical advice to obtain a diagnosis or any treatment regarding your mental health or well-being. The content in this podcast may not be applicable to you and your specific situation. Topics discussed in this podcast may include information that may be considered sensitive or emotionally charged to some people, and therefore listener discretion is advised. References to third-party resources are for informational purposes only, and 52 Inc. takes no responsibility for the content of those resources. This podcast is copyrighted 2025 by 52 Inc., all rights reserved.